There are a number of financial impacts that the Olympic Games could bring to Chicago, but most significant, I think, is the fact that they have already brought a financial impact of estimated somewhere around $10 million, which is the cost that it will cost us just to even get to the October 2nd host city selection date. That is when the IOC announces who's won the right to host the games. And this is money that supposedly is all privately funded, but of course Mayor Daley has made a number of promises that not a dime would actually go from public funds into hosting the Olympics, and then immediately has turned around and actually set up a TIF in Bronzeville to cover the building of the Olympic Village, and then also promised the IOC during his recent visit to Switzerland that actually it would be publicly funded. So we don't even really have an accurate sense of where that money is coming from, but the fact that Daley has promised it to various people from our tax money is sort of an indication, I think, that this is something around which at least the public should have the right to decide, and so far we haven't.
Yeah, and so a lot of the burden you think will land on the Chicago taxpayers. Even they say that maybe they won't, but do you know how much of the burden it will land on them?
I mean, so from Daley's perspective, and if I sort of were to get into my true Chicago patriotism mode and just trust the mayor, I could kind of see where he could maybe believe that some of the money would be privately raised. However, at almost no time in the history of the Olympic Games has it actually ever been entirely privately funded, and never in the U.S. Games. So I believe that Chicagoans will spend all of that money. I believe that it will all be public money. Moreover, we don't even know how much the games are going to cost. Recent games have spiraled completely out of control. Starting in, I think, in 1986, the games quadrupled from the original budget estimates, and then were all of a sudden 4 times what they originally thought that they would be. The London Olympics is something like 16 times the original budget, and that's in, 2016, I believe. No, that's Chicago. 2012 is the London Games. So we're on this spiraling out of control of how much money it's going to run over budget, which is completely insane that we're also promising that will be publicly funded during this enormous, international, financial crisis plus ridiculous state budget crisis. There's no logic under which this makes sense.
Yeah, and you said that you were at a previous Olympic game. Could you tell your experience with that?
So in 1996, I actually worked in Atlanta on the Cultural Olympiad, which is sort of, which is the Olympics' way of saying, we also care about the arts, but is basically sort of a way to do more marketing through the arts, of course. And so in 1996, I was in Atlanta when the Olympic Games were there, actually working for the Arts Festival of Atlanta on the Cultural Olympiad, which was a sort of financial disaster. Again, we were promised money that we never got. A weird corporate branding scheme, and also just we kept being handed all these mandates about how we had to promote sports through our art, which, when you're in the creative professions, you kind of think maybe I should be able to talk about what I want to talk about. But all of this aside, this was just sort of daily work life. Going out into the city in the evenings was this amazing experience of oh yeah, they just, picked up a bunch more homeless people and loaded them on this bus. And, oh, we can't say that here because, we're too close to the Olympic Village. And there was another couple. What was the other big thing? Oh, the stadiums, walking around the stadiums. A week after the Olympics opens, before they're even closed, the sidewalks were cracked. I mean, it was such a shoddy, fast, temporary housing or temporary building facilities job that the facilities didn't even last the length of the Olympics, which to me sort of means like bad job planning, but also we need to really look at the structure of the Olympics as it exists and as cities are sort of forced to do it.
And why, you personally assume are against that, bringing the Olympics to here in 2020?
I mean, I love sports and I love parties. And so, like, a 2 week sports themed party sounds like a blast, right? But, like, it should be privately funded and it should be scalable and it should be something that comes out of the participation of the people in the city, which is why I, started my own, like, sports festival that talks about issues of the Olympics, which is called the Olympics. And we have sports themed parties in people's neighborhoods and we talk about the issues that are raised by the Olympics but we actually talk about like how neighborhoods can participate in community building through sport. All of these things are great. It's just that the Olympics doesn't do those things anymore.
And how do you were talking a little bit about how you organize around the Olympics, and so can you talk a little bit about that? How do you organize around the Olympics? You mentioned the Olympics, but what are other ways?
Well, I do a couple of different projects that basically utilize creative strategies to approach people who don't necessarily usually involve themselves in activism. And this is something that I've done sort of in my history as an activist and as a writer. And so there's a lot of, playing a game and doing something that's fun and just having people in the neighborhood come by and then they ask what's up and you say, oh, well, looks like the Olympics are going to tear down this ballpark right now and build a $398 million 90,000 people stadium. Like, what do you think about that? You live across the street. And all of a sudden we engage in a dialogue about political issues that affect the people that are there, that affect me directly, because then I sort of know how neighborhoods will be impacted. And then we document this, and then we sort of share it with other people. Like, hey, look, outside of the political debate, outside of the alder people actually asking individuals what they think, and outside of the Chicago 2016 committee doing these ridiculous polls that claim 86% support for the Olympics in Chicago, like, here's what people are actually telling us. They're telling us, this sucks, make it stop. Is there anything we can do to make it stop? And they're having fun in the process, which starts to sound really dippy, but actually there's a lot of ways that it works and is enjoyable. And also in this time of crazy, burnout from organizing and crazy economic concerns, like, is really fulfilling for those of us who organize this stuff.
Yeah. Have you seen, with the economic collapse in the last 8 or 9 months, do you feel that it's hit Chicago particularly hard or not as hard? And then how do you see that being more affected by the games?
Yeah. I don't know if it's hit Chicago particularly hard. I know that the state budget crisis has been sort of an ongoing issue for a long time, and that we tend to mismanage funds here in Chicago. But I do know that the creative community in Chicago has been hit particularly hard, and that because of this, larger questions aren't being raised very often. And I think the biggest impact on that, at least in terms of the Olympics, is that no one's questioning something that's going to happen 7 years away. That may or may not come down to, like, whether or not we have public funds. Like, there's all these ways that space has been opened up for us to, like, think that it might be okay. And, like, at least I know, like, I'll take it, I'm so exhausted all the time that I will, like, fake it until till I make it, that maybe the games won't actually harm us. But in fact, all numbers, all studies, all resources indicate that in fact this is going to be really damaging and it's going to come down to hurt us. And so we do have to actually push through and organize now.
Great. Well, thank you.